Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah. I like the subject of this activity. After doing it. Not terrible. It's just people. This is have the largest. We'll have the largest stratification. A lot of running around. A lot of That's the last one we're going to do for a while. result calculations with that, but basically that. Seen the file off. He just yeah. Awesome. Let's see if we can get it. So 24 hours later, so they have to do classes. Oh wow. Something like that. Yeah, because they showed up. We had the performance. We were scared of it. So yesterday, going over the weekend, so it wasn't, it's different than that. Yeah. Yeah, they haven't put out on the other side of campus. Yeah. State college. Right, right. But this is something they can. Yeah. Yeah. Too hard. That's probably all done. Yeah, I think guilty. They made an official statement about it. No, for this part. Yeah, just the little. Hello. No, you want to be great. Parking lot. Good to know. And that definitely is way cheaper than. Even tickets on the car. If I'm a parking officer, I'm not going up to a car that smells like death. At that point, now they're just they're just picking your ticket. Sure. You have your car smell like death. So get a ticket. I person. Yeah. Especially in front of other. Yes, that was. Oh, it's yeah. Oh, so it's with a tone. That's how I started. Sorry, I was bothering you. No, you're not bothering me. Don't fret. I can do that on Zoom. So tell you know. Oh, you did not find it? It's there's so many projects that got raised. Yeah, I'm good. Just a little tired. Yes, yeah, take a nap. Not affiliated. Started thinking about just the ticketing side of things. How do you? They were here for like at least a day. They'd have. Yeah. I covered up here for a week. Yeah, they're a week and they haven't moved. Start taking. You're not going to ask questions. They go parking lot so get paid enough. One day. It's like it's about my favorite. Hovering up for one day. Good idea. Dang. Yep, but even you no last year, not this year. Oh, where do you live? I live in Fullerton now. No, I rent a room from this family. Yeah. They're from Sacramento, like in Northern California. Yeah. Wait, yeah. That had tickets and some multiple. Why you somewhere there? I think there is a CS. There's Sac State over there. They have Sac State and then yeah, there'd be some Davis. Berkeley are like 2 hours away from me. But Sac State is like Sac State and Davis are like 30 minutes from my house. But I wanted to go like oh. During now we go back then? No, not on the weekends. Usually for like break, like Thanksgiving or like winter break or like summer. I went home. And then it's 4/19, and he is lost that I knew. It's like you never got it. There's actually not. Actually, I mean, the one up there is good, huh? Yeah, we get it. It gets a little bit better. Okay, but that's not bad. Just it's called. I mean, I got a good laugh out of it.
most of high school yeah, much of you can plug it in over here. I went up to San Francisco. You like it? Yeah, I think so.
Graduating.
I agree. That's the way just I like the apples.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's like nice. I don't think it's nice. But like,
Yeah, there's not much to do over there. Other than like, you can see the house all around here. Other than that.
oh yeah, but
Yeah. Are you sure you should?
Right, it's 5:30. Let's go get started. All right, good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing today?
good.
Good. All right, so we have another ANSYS activity. So this will be our last one for a while, and so enjoy it. But you're probably not going to enjoy it too much of this one. The activity is probably the most difficult one. Well, I should say it's the most time consuming. So I think probably not everyone will finish today. But we'll get as far as we can. All right, and so the idea behind the activity today is to give us practice with shell and beam elements. And so the last two lectures we've been talking about this idea of this kind of special element type shells and beams and how they can help us out when our geometries are kind of in a challenging kind of position. And so remember what we talked about is that, generally speaking, when you're making a mesh, you want to have multiple elements through the thickness. So this is what's going to give us the best result. But if you have a thin, slender geometry, sometimes it's really hard to get that, and you end up with, a mesh that looks like this. We have only a single layer of elements. Okay. And so the geometry that we're going to be working with today is a bridge. Okay. And so if you look at this bridge, there are a lot of thin and slender geometries. So if you look at both sides of the bridge, we can kind of convert shell. Same thing with the road. Okay. And we have all the beams, and so we have the beam up top here, and then it's a little bit hard to see, but we have beams on the bottom. Okay. Convert all of these to shells and beams, and then we're going to do our analysis. Okay, and so if you haven't already, go ahead and open up ANSYS Mechanical, or just ANSYS Workbench, and then download the CAD file from the website. There's only one CAD file this week. We just have the bridges one. So there's no extra activity at the end of this one, but we are going to spend probably the entire time today working. All right, and so I also kind of pushed the due date back for this one just a little bit. And so I think this last activity was due on Monday. This one I'm having due on a Wednesday, so that's almost 2 weeks. So that's about 13 days from a little extra time. Partly just because the midterm project is out there too. So I want you guys to be working on the midterm project as well as this ANSYS activity. But this ANSYS activity will be kind of the last thing that's due before. All right. Any questions on this activity or just anything that we've been going on in the class before we begin for today? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and open up ANSYS, and so I already went and opened that. Okay. All right, so just like before, let's go ahead and open up static structural. Okay. And let's go ahead and import our geometry. So we're not going to do anything with the material properties this time, so we're going to leave everything as structural fluid. But we're going to focus purely on the geometry. So let's go ahead and browse. Let's go ahead and import the geometry that I had on there. So it should be bridges.iges. And then we're going to open up this geometry in a program called Space Clean. Okay. So if you're working with the 2023 version of ANSYS right now, you'll see that there's three different CAD softwares within ANSYS. I don't know why they have three, but it used to only be two. And so I actually haven't had a chance to check out Discovery, which is their newest one. And so we're going to do this activity in Space Clean, which was their newest one before Discovery. Okay. And so you're going to right click on geometry. And you're going to open up, edit this geometry in Space Clean. And then I'll kind of make sure you pick space claims. So don't pick discovery, don't pick design model. So all the instructions today are going to be relevant only in space claims. It'll take a couple minutes, and so make sure you guys are starting that process. So it might take a minute or two, depending on the power of your computer, but once you load it into space plane, it should look like this. So you should see the bridge, you should see the beams and the road and everything. So I'll give everyone an extra minute just to load it up, just because I have no problem. Just because for the next few steps, it's going to be really important that you kind of watch what I'm doing and kind of repeat it as closely as possible, because it's going to be a lot of steps. So we're going to be going through different menus, we're going to be clicking on other things, and then once we kind of convert something to a shell or beam, it's a little bit hard to go back. So I want to make sure that we're all kind of staying on pace as much. I'm going to move my bar down here so it's okay. All right, so is everyone able to open the bridge CAD file in space plane? Anyone still loading up? Okay. All right. All right. I'll give you guys 30 minutes. Sidebar even on the. Oh, don't worry about it. We're not gonna do it. Yeah, that list the parts, all the different parts. Hold on. You can try it. Okay, so was everyone able to open up the bridges in space plane? Oh, good. Okay, so what we're going to do in space plane here is we're going to basically modify this geometry to become shells and beams. Okay, so we're going to do all that conversion in here, and then by the time we get into ANSYS mechanical, we're just going to mesh it straight away. Okay. All right, so but the first thing we're going to do, and this is going to be a theme throughout most of today, is we need to fix the geometry, right? And so if you remember what I mentioned at the end of class on Tuesday, is that once you kind of start converting your geometry to shells and beams, it creates a lot of gaps. It creates a lot of kind of parts that don't connect as they used to once you convert things to shells. So we're going to spend the majority of our time here actually correcting those. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check for any kind of gaps or inconsistencies kind of right off the bat. Okay, and so you're going to come up to this top tab here. You're going to click on Repair. Okay. And so the Repair tab is kind of there to kind of repair the geometry. And so so ANSYS has a lot of automatic tools here to kind of automatically detect some problem areas in the geometry. Okay. And so first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to this first tool here called Stitch. Okay, so we're going to click on Stitch. So what the Stitch tool will do is that if there's kind of two parts of the geometry where they're not quite matching together, and they're 3D models, then what this tool will do is it'll kind of stitch them together as the tool kind of. So there's nothing wrong with this model. So there's nothing to stitch. But I did want to make you aware of that, if you were going to use this for. And so before you can start converting anything to shells and beams, you should always try to stitch your model. Actually, if you click on Stitch, you should see at the bottom that there's a little bubble that comes And so the other tool that we're going to use here is called the gaps tool. And so if you read the tooltip for gaps, it says it's going to detect and fix any gaps in the surface column. And so you're going to see it did find one gap here. So there is kind of a small gap in between these parts here. But we're actually not going to fix it here. Okay. Right. So normally, if you did have something that can be fixed in this model, either with the stitching tool or the gaps tool, this green check mark here will highlight, and then you can go ahead and click it, and then that'll automatically fix the part. Although this thing in particular is kind of something different. We'll kind of deal with this later, but that kind of shows you an example of kind of what ANSYS can do automatically. So we're not you shouldn't be stitching anything. There's no gaps to fix here, but just showing you kind of what to do. What kind of a general. Okay. All right, and so now that we're kind of confident that our 3D model is at least good to go, let's go ahead and start converting this. Okay, so the next tab we're going to go to is the Prepare tab, and so it's the one right to the right of Repair. And the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to convert our thin segments into shells. Okay. All right, so we have three shell bodies here. So we have the two sides of the bridge. This side of the bridge, and we have the road. Okay, so we're going to convert all of these into shell. If you look at the thickness, I think it's most clear from the road. Right? Okay, so from the road, you can see the road is very, very thin compared to how long and how wide it is. So that's kind of a textbook example of a shell. But the same can be said about the sides of the bridges too. So if you look at kind of the side of this bridge as kind of one whole body, you can see if you compare the length of the side of the bridge to the height, it's much greater than the thickness of the side. Okay, so these are kind of perfect surfaces to convert shells. Right. And so the operation that we're going to use is the mid-surface operation. Okay, so that's kind of what we talked about today. And so let's go ahead and click on mid-surface here. Right. So the next step here is going to be to select two parallel surfaces. And so remember, the way the mid-surface works is that you pick two surfaces here that are parallel to each other. So I'm going to click maybe the inside of this bridge here, and the outside as well. And so the two sides of your bridge should highlight. So one should be green, and the other should be blue. Okay. And so that basically says that ANSYS has found two viable surfaces. Right? And so to create the mid surface, all you have to do is click on this green check mark. Okay. And so by doing so, it's going to create a mid surface in between the two. Right? And so I'm going to try to hold this on as much as possible. You can see kind of highlighted or kind of transparent now is kind of the old surface. And then the gray thing in the middle, that's the mid surface. And so if you kind of click on it, you can see that we've basically turned this three-dimensional structure, or three-dimensional part of the structure, into just a thin shell, which has infinitesimal. All right, so let's go ahead and repeat that for the other side of the bridge. So make sure your mid surface tool is highlighted. So go ahead and click on the other side of the bridge. Once again, we have green on one side, blue on the other. Hit the green check mark. And so we've converted that side of the bridge to a shell. And then finally, we're going to do the same for the road. So the road, we're going to click on the road, the bottom side of the road, click on the green check mark. For the road, it's a little bit hard to tell because the road was already so thin, but you can see from here that it did turn it into a shell. All right, so by the end of this, you should have 3 shell surfaces, and so you should have 1 shell for each side of the bridge, and then 1 for the road. Okay. All right, any questions on this? Everyone able to use the mid-surface operation, okay? Awesome, cool. All right, so that's mid-surfacing, and so that's all there is to it. So your geometry kind of has those parallel surfaces. All right, next we have the beams. Okay, and so if you look at each of these beams here, they're all kind of fairly slender objects. So they all have kind of one dimension, right? And so in this case, it would be the length of these beams. that's much greater than the height or the width of those beams. So these are kind of perfect candidates for the beam element. So same thing. And so to create a beam element, we're again going to be within the prepare tab here. And then the button that we're going to pick is on the right here called extract. Okay. And so if you hover over the extract button there, you can leave the tooltip. And so you can see that it's going to extract a beam from a solid. Okay. As long as that solid has a constant cross section, then we can extract the beam. Let's go ahead and click on this tool. Right. And after you click on the tool, you can then kind of click on any of these beams here. Be careful, don't click the road. And so after you click on a beam, you can see that it disappears and it's replaced by a line. Let me go ahead and do that for all the other beams. Just going to go one by one, click on each beam. They should all be converted into. Right, so pretty easy, right? And so we're good. So we have all shells and beams, right? And so that's I would love to say that's all there is to it, but there's. But was everyone able to convert their geometry? So everyone has shells and beams now with geometry. Okay. All right, everyone on Zoom doing okay? No, I feel like I kind of neglect the Zoom. You guys are doing okay. All right, so now we have a geometry with all shells and beams. So the next step here is going to be to make sure that all the parts. And so if you kind of zoom in, so let's zoom in on this top beam at first. You can see here we kind of have an issue where this line right here, which we used to replace the top beam, there's a gap, right? There's a gap in between where the beam should end and the side of the bridge, right? So that beam was structurally attached to the side of the bridge. So we need to basically repair this geometry in order for that to happen. Okay. And so the tool that we're going to use for this is we're going to use an extend tool first. Okay. Because what we want to do is we basically want to extend these beams until they hit the bridge. Question in the chat, sorry. Oh, doing good. All right. Okay, and so the tool that we're going to use is also in this prepare tab here. We're going to use this button right here called extend. So if you highlight over the extend, what you can see what it will do is it will extend surface edges or sketches to line up with the intersecting bodies. This is kind of the tool that ANSYS has developed to kind of make sure that after you create shells and beams that everything. So let's go ahead and click on this. And at first, it's going to tell you that it's not going to see anything here. Okay, so go ahead and click on extend. It's going to say no areas were found, which is not true. So it should be modded areas. And the reason it's not seeing any areas is because it's only checking for a maximum distance of 10 millimeters. And so if you look on the options on the left, you can modify how far you want the extend to check. Okay. And so this bridge is bigger than 10 millimeters. We need to increase this. And so instead of 10 millimeters, let's go ahead and change this to 50. Okay. And so you can see after we've updated that, after we've changed that to 50 millimeters, you can see that ANSYS has found certain areas here that it can extend. It's highlighted all of those with the red circle there. So let's go ahead and click. So to fix it, you can go ahead and click the green check mark. Let me kind of show you kind of what happens when you do that. Here. Okay. You can kind of see from here that there's a gap. So once I hit the green check mark, you can see after I hit the green check mark, then the beam gets extended all the way to the bridge. Okay. And it only does that for one side, and so you're going to have to hit the green check mark again. That extends for the other side as well. And so that'll actually fix quite a few of the beams at the bottom too. But it doesn't fix all of them. Any questions on this so far? Everyone's able to extend?
So many areas where it's supposed to solve.
It was supposed to solve for 8, so it should be the beam, 2 areas on the beam up top and 3 per beam at the bottom.
Why do I got 6?
Okay, it's okay. So the so not all the beams are going to connect, and so the other ones we're going to have to kind of modify them. Might be a little bit different for everyone, just because the 2023 version is kind of been a little. Yeah, it's not supposed to fix all the beams, and so there should still be some beams that are disconnected. All right, any other questions on this so far? Okay. So actually, let me do this just to kind of make it a little bit easier to see. Let me go ahead and remove the road. Okay. And so I'm just hiding the road for now. And so if you have this kind of structures tab here on the left, you can kind of click on this check just to hide it. And so we're going to bring it back. Don't worry. But this is just to kind of make it a little bit easier for us. So in fact, let me kind of do this. Okay. And so when viewed from the top here, so this is our bridge. Okay, what I've done is I've clicked on the y-axis here to kind of view it from. And I did this just so I can illustrate that not all the beams. So we look at this beam on the bottom right here. This one was able to connect. But when we go to the next beam here, you can see that there's still a gap. And you might be thinking, why is that? Why isn't this beam connected to the bridge? You ask nicely, right? And so usually when you ask nicely, that doesn't always happen. Let me show you something. Okay. And so what I've done is I've changed the view so that we're looking down the z-axis here. And I've zoomed in on this beam here that's connected. And you can see here that it's slightly offset. Okay, so let me kind of rotate it around just so you can kind of see. So what I'm looking at is this beam right here is the one that's not connected to the bridge that it should be. And when I rotate around, you can see that there is a small gap. Okay. And the reason for this is that when we converted this beam into a beam, right, the center of that beam actually wasn't fully aligned with the bridge. If we convert it to a beam, we can see that the beam is actually below the bridge. And so we need to fix this. So we basically need to move this beam upwards a little bit. So we need to move this beam up here, okay, just enough so that it intersects with the bottom of the bridge. And then we can use the extend tool to kind of extend it to intersect. Okay, and so to do that, this is going to take a few different steps. Because first of all, we need to know exactly how much we need to up, and then we actually need to kind of move it. Okay, and so to see how much we need to move the beam up, we're going to use this tool called measure. Okay. Go to the top of the screen, we click on the measure tool here. And you're going to click on measure right here. Okay, so you can see that the measure kind of has an image of a caliper. Okay. All right, and so before we actually measure, you want to make sure that you select this option here for show XYZ vectors. Okay. Because we are basically going to be moving this beam up in the Y direction. You need to know how far off. Okay. So the way to use this measuring tool is we're going to use control click. So we're going to click on this beam. Okay. Right, so you click on the beam just by itself, it gives you the length of the beam. Then you're going to hold control on your keyboard. Then you're going to click on the bottom edge of the bridge. You have to be careful here. Make sure you click the bottom edge. You don't want to click the surface. Okay. And so if you do that, what you should see. And so what you should see with the XYZ vectors is that, compared to, when you measure the beam relative to the bottom of the bridge, there is an offset of minus 0.4127 millimeters. So we're very, very close. We just need to move it up about 0.1 413. Let me go ahead and write that down. And you don't have to use your screen, so you can have. But I don't, and so I write it here like a series. 413. And so now we know that this beam, we have to move it upwards 4.413. It just has to be slightly bigger than this gap. Okay? We just need to move it up just enough to kind of intersect with the bridge. Okay, so we're done with the measure tools. We don't need that. Let me go ahead and clear this. I cleared my thing. Okay, it's okay, I remember. Okay, and so the way that we're going to move the beam upwards, we're going to go to this next tab called Design. Okay. All right, so from the Design tab, we're going to be able to move different parts of the model around. And so, in fact, the tool that we're going to use is this one right here for. Okay. All right, so go ahead and click on the Move tool. And after you click on the Move tool, you're going to click on the beam that you want to move up. We're going to go ahead and click that beam. And then after you click that beam, there should be a kind of a coordinate axis that kind of show up here. And so you want to drag it upwards. And so for me, it's going to be the blue arrow. For you, it might be a different value. Okay. So when I click on the blue arrow, when I click on the blue arrow, I'm going to start moving it upwards. And you can see as I move it upwards, there's a box that kind of shows up on the side that tells you how much you're going to move it up on. Okay. And so, the way to kind of use this is you kind of click and drag the arrow until the box shows up. And then once the box shows up, you can input the value. Make sure you're moving up the whole beam. So don't click on the side of the beam. Make sure you click on the entire body of the beam. So the entire beam comes up. All right. And so after you do that, the beam should now be properly aligned with the bottom of the bridge. Let's go back to the Prepare tab. We're going to click on the Extend tool. Okay. And after you click on the Extend tool, you should see that the two ends of that beam that we just moved should now be able to be extended into the bridge. Okay, so click on the green check mark. Green check mark. Okay. And now that beam is good to go. Okay. And so I know people are having this question, but so every beam that's off here is actually off by a different amount, and so it kind of makes it a little bit obnoxious. So you're gonna have to do the measurement tool for every single beam. But I think it's kind of good to kind of get good practice. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question. So all the beams are slightly off by a different amount. So you're gonna have to measure each and every one, but it's okay. All right, and so I'll give you guys maybe 10-15 minutes to work on this, just because it is a little bit intensive. And if you're having issues with it, let me know, and I'll come around.
So.
Yeah, go ahead.
The bottom there.
The bottom.
Yeah, it gives it to you. Yeah, this is what helps.
Okay.
Yeah. Or make sure you hit control before you hit the bottom. I don't know if that's. Like first, you don't have to. I clicked the E, then hit control and then click the bottom. It's only giving me why, so I don't know if that's related. You're gonna really.
Yeah. And you can, if you mess up, you can control this. This part's the most. Oh. 26.1. You don't want to do it. It should be right at the edge. Not the first next. 26.5.
I'm having trouble with these last two. Because.
I think this size.
I think it, yeah. Oh, this. Sure, no.
Yeah, I know. That's probably the. So people, how are you guys doing? Doing okay?
Yeah. Yeah, gonna measure. Or then.
Yeah.
The edge of the. Design. Here's serious. Slap it, yeah. No, I don't. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, you want to move the beam just slightly up, just so that you're not making it touch the bottom.
Go back to design.
You don't want to move it up too much because, we want to respect the original
Click on that.
geometry. We're gonna bring the road back in a second. I don't know. That's just a.
And then. And then do like 0.0.
You might have accidentally moved one side, and so when you move, you want to make sure that you're selecting this person. So it could have been another step. You moved one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking at first. It looked like it.
It's actually. But then again, you look at the top. Well, we didn't move it. Like, well, then again, that one was already.
But yeah, so some things, so sometimes what people have. But then when you move, I think. And but actually, it actually moves the grid. So you might have to control. One of you guys. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you hold control on themselves.
Yeah.
And it's one. Really? Rotation on the other one usually. Like that's what.
Really? Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's start on the one day.
It just went up.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, so I'll give you guys maybe another 10 minutes to work on this, but if you're done with the beams, let's do the same thing with the road. So you can see the road here is kind of floating up a little bit. So let's move it downward so that it's sitting on top of the beams, okay? And so just like we did with the beams, we're gonna measure. So let's measure where the road is relative to the bottom of the bridge. Mine's off by about 28.37 millimeters, so I move it down by that amount. And so one important thing that that people are experiencing right now. So when you click on the move tool, you want to make sure that you only select the body that you want to move. And so I think some people are also just because we finished measuring it, you're also kind of selecting the bottom of the bridge. Maybe you're only clicking on one side of the beam, so you want to make sure that you're selecting the whole object. And only the whole object that you want. Okay, and so I'm going to click on the road here. Let's go ahead and move it downwards. So I'm going to move it downward by 28.13 millimeters. Okay. And so it should be sitting right on top of the beams. And then once we click on the extend tool, you should be able to extend the sides of the road as well. Okay. And so in the end, you should have a model that looks like this. All the beams are connecting to the bridge. And the road should be connected to the side of the bridge as well and sitting right on top of all the beams. And so you should have this by the time you leave Spaceman, but I'll give everyone maybe about 10, 15 more minutes to so this part. But once you get this, you can go ahead and close this out and then open up mechanicals, and then I'll meet you guys there maybe like 10, 15.
You just like eat. I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry. I know I have to make it downward.
Okay.
So what is that what I add?
So this one you want to add a little bit, take off a little bit, because if you move it down too much, that's actually going to be so
So it's like maybe 18 to
yes.
Measuring it, and there's no what's the distance, and I've been kind of following it. That's great.
It's, I mean, so these measurements are so small, 0.1 meters, that's like pretty small. So the more important thing is that.
Sorry, did you extend the this or is
Yes.
this still? Oh, you did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so after you move the road down, extend it. You need to move it down.
Yeah, I can say.
Did you move it past? Because for this one, actually, because the bridge is opening up, you actually want to move it slightly less than what's
Okay.
okay, so you might have to move it up by like 0.5, like 0.5.
Yeah.
It just has to be close enough to connect with it.
I can almost just like. When it gets like 2D, all the. Like I said, man, this saying, like, oh, I need oil and tears. Yeah, like when it's stressed out, like you do.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not a good time to.
Yes.
I was like, damn, how do you think this?
So this one looks like it's food. This side's because if you only click on one side, you might actually move it up one side. So yeah, so this beam looks like it's so one side of the beam is up about 5 millimeters, and the other side is kind of down. So we want to make sure the beam is straight. So let me go ahead and move that side of the beam. One's off by 0.765. But we live by 0.76. Nice.
Where's this? Hey.
Yeah, so I think so. The way to fix this, so when you click move, I want to make sure that if you're gonna move the whole beam, like, it's somewhere in the middle. That way it all comes together. But if your beams are slanted, then I have to just move just one side of the beam. Looks like this one. Oh, yes. That's fine. Open. I mean, this one you have to.
Mine did right there, it did.
Yeah, everything else looks connected, but you know, moving it up, just kind of eyeballing it. For this one is probably okay, just because it's so many of them. But we'll see in a bit once we make connections, it's just mechanical. It should all kind of try to be as close as possible, just to make sure that, because we're gonna put the road back on top. So we want to make sure that the road next to walk is. It's a good. One trying to they're all kind of close. That's why we can measure that. I know it's a pain in the ass to kind of measure at the same time, but I know. Yeah, so you want to convert the top. That one should connect automatically. You shouldn't have to move that. But okay. There. Right, so yeah, do the same thing like roads. You have to move that down a little bit to so that it's in a couple of pieces, and then extend it. And then, yeah. Oh, that might be the beam on top. You get it to.
Oh. I mean, it's the same thing for, I don't know, did you move it yet? Yeah, so you just move it, I think. So, well, actually, I didn't. Same way, it's just the calipers. The thing. The same button. It might be a different amount they.
You can hide them, so.
I click the button, then you control and then it's. That's how I do it. I don't know. I think that's what he's. Because mine is saying. Oh, yeah, it's long, but I didn't have it. It's C direction. I think the bottom of the road. Scroll into the bottom. I don't think control. Wait, it's.
Yeah, you might have that's funny, so the roads.
It's 28, so it's gonna be. I don't know if I just. Watch an extended. I might have had it. So I can bring it down.
Yeah, because I was moving it exactly back down, like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you want me to do this down there? Slightly less.
Mine doesn't work. Mine's like pretty down 20.
Okay, okay. Okay, got it. Not like that, all right.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's.
Oh, yeah, so with. Even when you better.
Just adding on.
Like I've never seen this thing. I mean, I think it was probably. Only a handful.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be any, it should be as light as possible, but.
That's what we got.
So I like.
I know, you got like 20 minutes. That'd be fine.
Did you get the? Yeah. That applies, like, just like a little bit.
Like Italian or Asian food, I feel like I could do a lot. I'm not, I've been trying not to go. I'm trying to like that. Super healthy.
I eat but
Because like, it's really easy for you to eat like too much of it, you know what I mean?
All right, everyone good to go, or at least more close, and so we do have to move on, because I want to make sure I at least cover the next part, before I send you guys out, so. If you're at this part where the road is connected and all your beams are connected, great. And so if you're here, you can go ahead and close space. If you're not, then I'll come back around later, but I want to make sure I get next part also. Not as annoying as the connections, but still slightly annoying. Okay, so after you close space plane, go ahead and double click on model. So that's going to open up ANSYS Mechanical.
They're still.
It's slightly above, so that's still doing it. Does that issue go down to about 28 to me, like.
Yeah, it's just, I don't think.
Okay, yeah, you should be able to. Okay, all right, so after you load into mechanical, it should look like this. That's in shell and beam mode. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna suppress this surface here. So if you remember from the beginning, ANSYS or Space Clean told us that there was one gap in the model. Here's the gap. For some reason, it's showing up as a separate part. So let's go ahead and just suppress this because it's not really doing that. And so it should show up as like a question mark sys surface. So let's go ahead and right click and suppress it. Okay. And let me show you something. And so remember what we talked about on Tuesday was that every shell here needs to have its own thickness, right? And the thickness is not represented geometrically, it's represented essentially as a material property. And so if you click on one of the shell surfaces here, you should see in the bottom left of the screen that there is a and so for the size of the bridge, you know, the thickness of that side was about 1 inch. So you should see that 1 inch there. And for the road itself, it should be about 1/4. And so that's kind of the benefit of using the mid-surface operation, is that the ANSYS kind of records that thickness automatically. But the cool thing is you actually have the freedom to change it. And so if you wanted to change this, you actually can change it later on. Okay, but that's not the annoying part. The annoying part is the connections, right? And so what we have right now is a model of shells and beams, which is great. Okay? The problem is, you know, because we basically kind of destroyed the geometry, we kind of replaced it with a new one. ANSYS it kind of broke all the connections that it had before. But physically, you know, what we think should happen is that the beam should be physically connected to the bridge, the road should be physically connected to the beams, and the road should be physically connected to the bridge as well. But we have to do this manually because we created all these shells and beams. Okay, so you're going to go to the connection area here, you're going to right click on connections, you're going to insert, and what you're going to do is you're going to insert a manual contact region. Okay? And so that manual contact region, we're basically going to define which parts should be connected to each other so that they can, you know, be basically fixed together in the simulation. Okay, so let's click on manual contact region. And we have quite a few connections that we need to make here. But we're going to do them in groups to kind of save us some time. Okay, so the first contact region that I'm going to make here is I'm going to make sure that this side of the bridge is connected to all of the beams. Okay, so I'm going to click on the bridge here. Okay, so that the side of the bridge highlights green, and I'm going to set that as the target. Okay, so your target should have one face there. Okay, and then for the contact, that's the parts. Those are going to be the parts that are going to be attached. And so the parts that we want to attach to the bridge are all the ends of these beams right now. So we're going to click on each individual node. So this is going to be a little bit annoying. And so just to make sure that you can select all the ends of the beams individually, you want to make sure that you change the selection mode to vertex. Okay? And so you're going to go to this kind of this bar here. You're going to go to this bar on ANSYS right here. And so, you know, we've utilized this bar a couple times, you know, in past activities, but I think here is going to be the most useful. So we want to make sure that our mouse kind of snaps to a vertex. Okay, and so with the vertex mode selected, let's go ahead and click on all the sides of the beams. Make sure you hold Control on your keyboard so you can select multiple things at once. You want to be careful here. You want to make sure you select all the beam ends. Right, and so before you apply it, you should have okay, so you want to be careful here. So you want to make sure, because there's a lot of corners on these sides of the bridge. You want to make sure you don't get the corner. You want to make sure you get the ends of the beam. And so it should look like this. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you should have 8 little green dots showing up. Okay, so once you have those eight dots showing up, go ahead and go to the contact here and hit apply. Okay. And what you should see is that those 8 vertices should be connected to the one side. Okay. And so, you know, we have to make all these connections manually. And so, you know, so that's one connection that we need. And so to add another contact region, you're going to right click on contact. You're going to go to insert. you're gonna click on manual contact region again. And you're gonna do the same thing, so you know, you can do the same thing on the other side of the bridge, and so. Click on surface selection, so go ahead and click on that side of the bridge. Target, apply, click on vertices, okay. And then connect, you wanna connect all the vertices to the other side of the bridge. You have to zoom in and kind of fly around the model. It's a little bit annoying. So the bridge should be the face, and then for the beams, it should be the front. So what this is going to do is it's basically going to connect these. So this step is necessary to make sure that, you know, the beams are properly fixed to the bridge. Otherwise, they're just going to slide past each other. Okay. So that's it for that one. So you should have 5 contact regions overall. So you know, we just did the beams to the bridge. And so you want to create another manual contact region that connects the side of the road to the bridge. And make use of the selection tool to make it easier to kind of select the parts that you want. Let me go ahead and I'll go ahead and apply all 5 contact regions just so that you can see, and then I'll give you guys some time. We are running out of time, so I want to make sure that last contact region is connecting the road. Go ahead and
Science. Yeah.
yes.
For the third and fourth one, was it the target, the road, and then the contact for the sides, or
Yes.
the other way around?
Yeah, so your target should always be the bigger surface, whichever it is, and then the contact should be the smaller one, either the point. Okay, so let me go ahead and label these, and then I'll go around and kind of help. Okay, so these are the 5 regions that you. So clicking on the different parts can be a little bit annoying, but make sure you have these 5 regions here, and I'll go around and kind of help people. Maybe for the next 10 minutes, we'll go very quickly over the mesh and the boundary condition. What's up? Okay, it doesn't matter. So exactly, right. They click on one side.
It doesn't matter as long as it gets it.
Exactly. So I don't know why it only shows up green on one side. It shows green on another. Maybe it's because it is a shell surface, so technically it's 2 surfaces. But
It's like I'll be.
yeah, exactly. What up? Oh, that's fine. Yeah, so that's only just for, so for more complicated models. Yeah, but for mine, I just put it all in one. But it's one, it's just a sorting menu. So as long as you have the 5 regions. Yeah.
Edge or left side?
Friday is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the left side of the road.
Right side of the road. Yeah, which one is the bigger?
Yes, five.
For the context.
Sorry, trying to figure out.
These type of little.
Before a job, finding rest in my life.
I don't know, right.
One.
Is that showing us the question? Yeah. Base.
Some that walk in. Yeah, so. Yeah, here.
It's the base of this one and the kind of.
No, I didn't see.
Unless it's further ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, he was doing it, professor.
No, I knew about some. Gonna try to get on my laptop. Is there on sale?
What we would do, sorry, was going. He do what you like.
I don't have
He wasn't. And some of the. Group this up. Actually decided. Yeah. He's like, you guys, I'm okay.
And you got armor.
He's like, say no.
Can't you move armor?
He's like, okay.
No, I'm talking about specific, like specific guards. It's not like, you know, just like slide arm. It's pretty cool. I don't have. I do have a tractor.
Oh, oh, okay, I think it's the, oh, but the material, just set the one that's. That one you can just. The other one, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Context. Well, it depends. Context would be whatever you want. One thing we want to. If this cross is it, what is you want to make? Yeah, we did that. I got it. Oh, good. The third part is just deciding. So actually, you need to go back. Need to make sure.
It's all like that we have to look at the same spot. But that's how you're but it's fucking like, and you don't have on your way.
Yeah.
Not only that, now it's like,
And did
So I have everything. I have done like.
So the left side of the room to the bridge, is the bridge the photography or road?
The bridge is the cartography, yeah, so we'll talk about it. Some point,
So the whole face of the bridge.
Yes.
We can talk about it and then. Like onsite, it's just the side of the edge.
Exactly, yeah, just the edge.
Yeah,
It's a little bit hard to grab, yeah.
It's the same for the other side. What about the is a whole face and that would be the target?
Exactly, and then the contact should be all the edges.
Oh, so it's gonna be 14?
No, so
The entire, like, just the beam itself?
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm saying the points, okay.
I think he's lost.
Okay, so we have 5 minutes left, and so let me just kind of show you what the simulation should look like. So we spent this entire activity just kind of preparing the model. And so if you mesh it, you should hopefully see kind of all the fruits of our labor. Let's go ahead and generate the mesh. I'm not going to apply any settings here. Okay, so when you mesh here, so I'm going to say this, but I know I'm going to get some emails back. But if you mesh it here, it looks like we're using solid elements here, but that's only a rendering thing. So if you go to display here, if you unclick on thick shells and beams, you should be able to see the mesh as it should be. And so as kind of a two-dimensional elements and one dimension. Okay, but you guys can feel free to play with the mesh, but just for the interest of time, I'm just going to leave the mesh as default. And then to run the simulation, we need to have a fixed support somewhere. So I'm going to apply fixed supports on the two ends of the rows. Then I'm going to apply a load on top. Force load, apply surface, load itself. Let's say that we're going to apply 150 pounds. Apply the minus y direction. Okay. So let me just really quickly show you the deformation. All right, I know I'm going really fast, but I want to make sure that you guys see this before. Okay. Move the deformation. So the deformation should look something like this. And so if you did everything correctly, and you did all the connections correctly, the deformation should look something like this, where you should have kind of peaks of deformation in the middles of the roads, but the beam should be supporting it in between the two. Right? And so you should see that the beams, where the beams are, the deformation is less because you have the beam supporting it. But then away from the beams, you should have more deformation located on there. Okay, so you should see kind of these almost like these kind of circular patterns on it. So that should be kind of the first thing that you check for. And so if you're not seeing this kind of deformation pattern, when you apply just kind of a simple kind of load, vertical load on top of the road, I would kind of go back and check your connections to make sure that they're all kind of. Okay, so we have a couple more minutes, and so I'm going to go around and kind of finish up some last minute questions, but that's basically the activity. And so for the rest of the activity, you're going to kind of answer the rest of the questions, but they're all kind of based on this. So we did hopefully the majority of the work today. I know this activity is kind of. All right, so I'll come around a couple more times, but if you guys are kind of finished or kind of reach this point, that's about it. And so thank you guys for coming today. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and I will see you guys next week. Oh, I just did a vertical. So if you did find by phone. I thought I just did a force and minus. So it doesn't really matter what magnitude it is. As long as it's kind of vertical. You can do minus like 500.
I'll figure it out later.
You should do the fixed circle. So
So I chose the fixed support just to be. It would be higher road. Higher road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so. On. Side and then the other side.
Yeah, I'm gonna be.
Okay, so if you're getting a solver pivot warning, an issue might be connection. I would double check those. I think the one that's easiest to make is connecting side of where it's. Bottom edge of the really close to the middle, so let's just want to take.
Yeah, like maybe a while. Yeah. Maybe how much it's like.
You can see the amount of force we're.
Reordered it, like this one, I went hard on the first game. You know, work out pretty hard.
Let me just.
Either world. I think hugged you about the video. More of a cough, it started like a spark, but no. See, no, it's really. Yeah, all of LEDs. Oh, since the past.
Let me see connections.
Back warrior at the end. Yeah, that was one. Yeah, the map, yeah, first encounter. Yeah, and you're going, there's like a speeder section of it, which was insane. That was pretty fun, I agree. It was not short too. I had.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this should be this side of the road. Yeah. And so if you click on this one, you can just click on the other edge and you kind of select that one. It should. So I think it's giving you this roll. This slide roll just gonna slide.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try different solving.
Yeah, bro. No, not for Osiris, but I got like 3 flawless that I'm like OG trial. Then I just go like. You have great. Fully. Like a boring grind. Pretty good. I jump back in and back. Yeah, yeah, that's what he's trying to. Yeah, nice. No, right. He didn't do any of this stuff. We didn't hold by your head. Playing. And then we don't need anything else. That's just so. Right there. All the. Yeah, why is it like on the edges? Yeah, like it's like slightly like tapered like this or something.
Yeah.
Your contact points, you know. Oh, contact.
Oh, I don't know what. Why, but for some reason, all of your, it's on the bottom, I don't know if it's all connecting it. They all have the same link.
Of course, I was like negative.
Well, I mean,
8,000. I just made it the whole surface. Yeah, this shows, so you, yeah, so basically this shows. So I'm going to the gym. Oh, I'm gonna define house for it. Yeah, or like, it's only. Like negative. It's right, it's red, for definition, red. Family. Oh, no.
I think one of the issue might be that
So for making like
the connection between the beams and the wire
Yeah, well, I don't, yeah, what you had right there, one there.
might be because the beams are slightly.
No.
I think that's the issue that these are connected. And so when you apply the force on the road, I think it all kind of changes. So it works if we kind of suppress all these, but the beams should be connected to the road. I would go back and just kind of remeasure everything, check to make sure that they're all kind of the same. That they're all kind of connected to. I think the issue that this connection here is it's or maybe inconsistent by spacing. Slightly more than the tone.
Yes.
That's why.
Like, how did, when you say yours, I thought. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know it's really new, so. I'm just kind of going back and kind of.
Oh, so it makes it add.
Yeah. I always do it.
Okay.
Save it like on my desktop.
So.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best. Send it home, kind of just remeasure everything.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, so. But you can swap this, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's a little bit, so. This one's the mesh. I think I applied a larger force. I just did kind of a dummy force. I think I. And the mesh. Look.
I wonder if that.
Oh, yeah, it was, I think. Yeah. Usually like probably half the. Yeah. Especially with the shells in it, so this. But then. Honestly, the better thing is just to create font. So this one learning, and so this catalog.
It's a physics that I'm not mad.
I picked it on purpose to show you guys what.
So I got like
So
five
this
point
is
three
probably
one
that.
five, right? And I went up
So you
like
have like a
like
better-
20 and then went down 20.
I'm only the second time. I had to restart every time. That's maybe wrong, but I think I did right.
I think that's.
So, oh, is it for the?
Couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's gonna be slightly different because the. But that was just kind of a dummy thing. Yeah, so I did, I just only did 100. But because he did 500, it's gonna be. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Did one, I only just did dummy, it's just. I think it's even different than the one I had. I think in the assignment, I have to pick your own books. There we go. I think that. Yeah, that's good.
How did that affect? Down today. Like November. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the most. That's enough. Okay. It sounds like.
I want to.
There is brown.
So.
Okay.
I couldn't.
Yeah, we didn't go over that.
I think I.
We intended to kind of have a small area. Basically engagement.
Yeah.
We haven't gone over that yet. I have the handout online. I think what's
Yeah.
actually just applied it on.
That was great. Usually it's like super.
Yes.
Small. If you didn't have. Yeah.
To be on the.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's some of what you should leave. Yeah, we'll go over that. The final project.
I get that.
For now, don't worry about it. I think it's a good spirit to think about.
What possibly?
This is 410, find it out.
It's small. It's gone.
Any final questions? I think I need a. Next professor. Is the instructor here?
No, you'll be here for a few more minutes.
Okay, all right.
Feels up like